Right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you happen to be. My name's Paul. I'm also called Nik Nak. I do daily brain teasers. I talk about TV shows I've watched. I've just finished watching series 12 of Doctor Who, for example, and got a bit lost for something to watch. That's why I'm talking to you right now. It's late on a Sunday night. It's so late on a Sunday night, it's actually Monday morning, and I wanted to watch something. I wanted to watch a film. I do talk about those as well. And I wanted to watch something I'd last seen quite some time ago. In the light of the fact that this summer sees a remake or a reboot of the film, I wanted to see Candyman. Yes, no, I'm not going to do it 5 times, okay? Let me tell you about the film though, and try and give you a quick summary. Based on Clive Barker's The Forbidden from the fifth of his books of Blood series, Candyman, back in 1990, it's the 1992 version, opens with an aerial view of the streets of Chicago and an aerial view that leads up to the Cabrini Green housing project, and that gives us a little introduction from the film's central character. The film then switches to Chicago's main university, where graduate student Helen Lyle, played by Virginia Madsen, is working with her fellow graduate, Bernadette Walsh, played by Casey Lemons, Ardelia from Silence of the Lambs, on their joint thesis about modern urban legends, including a strange one they keep hearing about, that saying the name Candyman 5 times while staring into a mirror would cause the Candyman himself, played by Tony Todd, to appear behind them and turn them into a dead body with the aid of a hook he has instead of his right hand. It's only when Helen meets one of the university's cleaners, a resident of the Cabrini Green project, that she learns about Ruthie Jean. Ruthie Jean, it seems, was a young single mother who'd apparently been killed by the Candyman himself. Ruthie Jean was also someone whose desperate neighbour, Anne Marie, Vanessa Estelle Williams, is convinced that Ruthie Jean's death wasn't caused by the gangsters who later on assault Helen, but by the Candyman himself. Helen, of course, reports this and is held through the initial stages of the report by the local police. And as she walks back to the car park, in one of the film's more intense scenes, she's walking back to her car through a dimly lit car park and finds herself meeting the real Candyman. Finds the real Candyman, the one she and Bernadette had originally called at the start of the movie, very inadvertently, isn't the myth she thought he was. Now, what can I tell you about Candyman? First things first, just so you know for a little later on, I have a 5-star system of rating films. It starts at 0, forget about it, all the way up to 4, 5 in total, 0 is a number, all the way up to 4, go watch it now. Keep that in mind for later, okay? The last time I saw Candyman was several years ago with an old friend. And I have to ask myself right now, is Candyman as good now as I felt it was then? That soundtrack, that's a starting point possibly. It's a soundtrack composed by a noted composer called Philip Glass, and with the possible exception of something like The Godfather or The Exorcist, possibly more appropriately, I don't think I know of any other soundtrack quite on the same line. Star Wars, Superman, they're all big action adventure soundtrack. This is something quite intensely creepy. It's a mix of Psycho and well, God knows what else, but it's a nod at Psycho, a nod at The Omen, a nod at the classicism of The Godfather. I don't know, it's practically unique among soundtracks. Then there's the central performances themselves, and I don't use this word often, is superb. She gives us a very driven protagonist, one who's very much driven and concerned with doing her research, but very much over the course of the film, suddenly aware that her marriage is breaking up further than it has, and is also very aware that there's a child's very innocent life at risk here and that she needs to do something about it. She's also very aware that she's either turning murderous or going mad, or that the myth she's researching is not as mythical as she thought. Which brings us to the other main performer, Tony Todd, as the Candyman himself. And it has to be said, Virginia Madsen gives us a very good performance. There's one scene where she's having a pop at her husband, Trevor, and you can see the details in her face. She's playing this and bouncing this all off of Tony Todd as the Candyman himself, and I don't think I've seen anything like it. There's been supernatural slashers before now. Freddy, Jason, Michael, you name them, there's been them. There's been others since. The Scream franchise is possibly throwing something around there as well. Many of those earlier ones I've mentioned, Freddy, Jason, Michael, they are goons. Wisecracking goons in the case of Freddy, but they are basically goons with masks and a big knife. Tony Todd, on the other hand, in the aid of a hook that's held up and an echo chamber and his own imagination, he actually came up with the backstory for the Candyman. That whole thing of a slave in a forbidden interracial relationship, that was his work. So that's boosted what I felt about him and what I felt about his performance since then. He came up with that character, and in using that hook and in doing it,
The voice.
there's only so much an echo chamber will do, but in doing that voice, Todd came up with a horror icon. There are possibly better films around. Possibly. The Babadook is one. If you want a sheer nerve-jangling horror film, The Babadook. If you want an outright beautiful ghost story, The Awakening, that's another. Both of those are listed here on Nik Nak's So Peculiar, my blog, at some point. Now, the last time I saw Candyman, I gave it 3 stars. I felt it was a very good film indeed. Certainly one worth watching, certainly one worth keeping around. This time round, and in retrospect, and looking at the film again, I'm giving it 4, the top marks for my system. I think you should sit down with the original Candyman, especially if you're going to see the new one. Especially even if you're not going to see the new one. It is still, I think, a very watchable film. Go check out Candyman. Thank you for listening to me prattle on.